A very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Gaming Week, powered by Akamai Technologies. During the lockdown, gaming emerged as one of the industries that witnessed huge growth. Understanding its potential, we at Gaming Week are trying to understand the past, the present, and the road ahead. During the week, we'll be joined by top names in the gaming fraternity. To begin with, I would like to thank our sponsors, powered by partner Akamai Technologies. Now introducing you to the moderator of the session, Anirban Roy Chaudhary, Associate Editor, AFAX. Once again, thank you everyone for joining. Over to you, Anirban.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Debashish. More than one of the industries which saw a lot of growth during the pandemic, I think it was one good reason to stay indoors, the video games and the gaming industry. We saw a lot of actions, and especially broadcasters like Sky Sports showing FIFA. It was a different moment altogether because they would otherwise show football matches, but there were no football matches. That's where we start. We have to talk about media rights. Now, India is a country we have seen media properties being emerged and they're being sold to broadcasters. But gaming is still a new event that I would say media is evaluating. A few of them, for example, Supratik and Akshat, they have already had properties which were actually acquired by media houses and then streamed or broadcast. And then on the other hand, we have Satya Raghavan from YouTube and Vivek Jain from MX. They would probably be looking at these properties. In YouTube, for example, last year acquired the rights of two of the biggest leagues, like Call of Duty and Overwatch from Activision, and now they will actually stream those. Now it's a lot of gaming action going on between YouTube, Twitch, and Microsoft. But where I would like to start is with you, all four of you, shedding some light on the ecosystem. Where do you see today? Are there enough events in India, Satya, for you to look at, which you could probably acquire and then develop as a sport?
Hey, thanks, Anirban. Thanks for having me here, and thanks AFAX, and thanks all the sponsors, and obviously the panelists. So yes, you're right. The pandemic actually saw massive acceleration in gaming. For us, it was a vertical that was already on an upward trajectory all through 2019, but 2020 also really helped that acceleration. At YouTube, for us, it's the entire ecosystem that we think about, right? So it's not just a gamer, not just a player, not just a team, but it's all of these folks, including the publisher, the viewer, the advertiser. So we would like to take a view which is like more of an ecosystem way of thinking, and that actually helps us determine readiness for a bunch of things across different verticals, and each vertical, in all fairness, is in a different state of maturity or growth in that sense, right? And even if you actually look back at the way media rights happen in the world of sport, which is a parallel that we can all kind of look at and learn a lot from, I think it's only in the last 3 or 4 years that we have seen multiple sports have multiple media right tournaments going on, right? So we all obviously the obvious one to default to is cricket, and in cricket there are many media rights properties out there. IPL is the obvious one. It's coming up now in some time, but it was actually very interesting to see in the last few years also sports like badminton or hockey or football also emerge in a very, even kabaddi for that matter, right? So I think all of those are signals that we should kind of look at to kind of figure out how best to calibrate entry into doing more of these, or there are already folks here. We'll talk about some of the esports experiments that they have done as to how to best calibrate and how to set expectations and all of that, right? So we forever have been supporting gaming and esports, not just in India but across the world. But we have definitely picked up wanting to know more about this ecosystem in the last couple of years, and we're working very closely with folks like Akshat to try and see what we can do together. But I would love to hear more points of view from everyone as well.
Yes, Akshat, up next to you. I mean, you have been interacting with broadcasters and media players for some time, talking about the properties that you have. What have you made of the ecosystem? Do you see more as streaming platforms grow in India? Do you see more people interested in esports?
One of the ways to go answer that question is so little bit look back, right? Media rights has been this holy grail that that most sports look for all the time, right? It's not just esports. Everyone looks for that because fundamentally it's great for your valuations. It's great for your revenue. It's great for the synergy that you can go ahead and build on. And we've seen football do really well. We've seen cricket do really well. One of the largest media rights properties in sports across the world is something called the Olympics, right? It's the largest sports media property out there in the world. And those are built very strong, very well around this. And if you look at it from a broadcaster's or a rights holders rights person who actually takes those rights, it's really important to understand why they take it, right? For me, as a person who is the IP holder, I'd always want more. It's natural for me to go ahead and want more. For the broadcaster, he always wants to pay less because everything else becomes the cost part of it, right? And understanding fundamentally what you can go ahead and do with what party, which is there. Just before the conference started, we talked about the fact that Satya was mentioning this is an ecosystem play. For me to just go ahead and come and sell something to YouTube where it's YouTube's problem to go ahead and solve this will not work. The Western way to go ahead and do this will not work. If I go to Vivek and I say, hey, Vivek, just take something and pay media rights for it, it will not work, right? And hence we have to see what works for what property. We have something with MTV, we have something with Viacom, and what works for Viacom doesn't work for us for YouTube. What works for YouTube doesn't work for us for MX Player. What works for MX Player doesn't work for us on Hotstar. And it's everything needs to be, what is the community? What is the kind of viewership which is there? What is the kind of formats that people are liking to go ahead and do? We always talk about live matches being the most valuable, which is there. Why is it not non-live not important? Why can't scripted content, or why can't reality television around gaming and esports not be something that is there? We have the ecosystem. We are now among the top 3-4 countries in the world for gaming video content generation and as community. And PUBG did that with Call of Duty. With Ludo, we don't like talking about Ludo, but Ludo is a huge game, right? And there's so many people who will go ahead and do it. Cricket with WCC and Real Cricket are doing so well. And I think that's the thing. Opportunities are out there. Multi-format is out there. Let's work together to go ahead and figure out what works. And then we'll figure out how to share.
Okay. I'll come to Vivek and ask you about what would make an appealing, appealing IP for you to buy the rights. But before that, Supratik, can you shed some light on what it takes to actually develop this IP? I mean, you developed eCypher. It was there for 2 years, and we saw it in your association with Viacom. But what does it take in India to have an IP of that scale?
So. Two bases to it. We've actually had the eCypher piece, which took a couple of years to actually build out. And it was a multi-game, multi-team kind of a format. And it can be broken down into individual plays as well. So eventually we wanted to experiment with it to actually understand what works. Now, when we went to MTV, the same time band as MTV Roadies was provided to us. It was good and bad, whichever. We took it. Half the number was attained by the programming, which again allowed us to think that this lands somewhere if more is done with it. And it was just broadcast for 35 days flat. So eventually that gave us an understanding that this begins to work. It has to be, we have to plow and we have to wait for reaping it. The second part of it was actually when we did Umumba Esports, which is since, from 2018 all the way till 2000, till very recently when the PUBG, unfortunately, the game was, taken off. But that's another part of the challenge. Now, that piece was also to understand that how, as a team owner, can you really make it work? Because finally, that's also the ecosystem. There are two parts to it. One is actually or three parts to it, the grassroots and the upward movement. Then is the league, and most important are who are the teams who will play. And for both us, Akshat, for everyone, that's an important play because that's part of the ecosystem. We have to take care of each of the players. So eventually, these are all specs, and I'm very much dependent on the broadcast play, which to India's standpoint is also very important that television still can't be taken off the chart right now. With the 130 to 180, I was reading Mr. Harit Nagpal's take on it very recently. And, it still can be used to catapult it to the next level, where the digital will definitely have a play, and this is more digital play, but the advertiser sponsor also needs it. So from our standpoint, I think these are pieces which are important, and I think it'll be over a time that it'll fall in place. 2021 till 2023, 24, I think are the vital years. And also to a certain extent is actually uh, the, the government backing the idea, saying that this can go in a certain space, because finally we need a certain, I would say, legal standpoint in terms of how this can be run, and which is exactly why athletes and the movements and, what is paid and how it is paid is actually recognized very well, and which offers them then the, standpoint of also going into the Asians and Olympic Games. So for us, the entire ecosystem is important to see.
Yeah, yeah. Vivek, MX is public with its ambition for of gaming, despite being a video on demand platform. How do you see these gaming properties that are there, and what would be a fit for a platform like MX?
Sure. Firstly, thanks for having me, Anirban, on the panel, and very nice to be with all of you. So MX, of course, our journey started with being a local device video player. Think of it like a Windows media player for an Android phone. And since then, we've evolved and it's become a super app in which there's long format video, there's short format video called Takatak. And most recently, around a year ago, we launched a gaming platform. Within gaming, we are focusing on mobile, hyper casual games. Most of these games are India centric. So think Ludo, cricket, carom, uh, not the Western games, not the Candy Crushes. So it's hyper casual, but focused on India. Within these games, I think multiplayer segment is doing exponentially better than single player games for us. And yeah, I think gaming is definitely the fastest growing division for us. So we are looking to take aggressive bets this year, actively evaluating various gaming, properties. And this year is going to be, gaming is going to be a focus area for us. So actively evaluating at this point and just learning more about the business.
That's great. Do we have enough trends, Satya, on who are the people who actually watch streamers on YouTube? Is it the same crowd that was always there on YouTube, or are you acquiring new crowd in YouTube India through the new pool of streamers that you have? And they're very active. They've been playing, and there's a social engagement as well, where people comment and say, "Would play it the other way around, not this way." So, is there any particular trend that you notice?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, and I can literally talk a lot about it. But some of the top line things that we are seeing, right? Earlier, you were right. There were perhaps a handful of streamers, and they were perhaps like you can say the real aficionados in that sense of a particular game, right? And they would only stick to streaming one game. And that was the universe, and it was just a handful of them, right? But we've already seen that ecosystem grow exponentially over the last couple of years. There are many more streamers and many more games, right? So that's one axis of growth, right? So there are the action games. There's even chess, right? I mean, it's fascinating to see chess happening in such an interesting manner. So many games and many streamers now within that, right? So that's one point, right? The second thing that we saw happening is, many streamers in many games now in many different languages, right? So earlier it was possibly, the usual Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore kind of crowd in that sense. But now we are seeing people from, who speak many different languages do the same thing, which also then implies that they also come from possibly smaller towns, even more smaller towns and things like that, right? Earlier, it was a male preserve in that sense, right? It would be, young teenage men, right, in that sense. But now even that is changing, right? So now we have, women gamers, women streamers, and things like that. The teams have also started now come into this mix, right? So in my mind, it's like a ecosystem of creators or streamers on one side, where there is growth happening on multiple axes, right? So it's very interesting to kind of observe it and see where the growth is coming from. Where is it that we perhaps don't have as much growth coming from, but can we intervene subtly and things like that, right? So it's poised at a very interesting level. So one part of the puzzle is really good, I feel, which is the people who are streaming and gaming. there obviously can be more, and all of us will need to collectively work on growing that ecosystem. That part of the puzzle I feel is like really good, right, in that sense. And not perhaps related to this question, but related to the earlier question, I would love to throw in a framework of sorts, right? Because what's a panel discussion without a framework? So if you look at sports rights on TV, it is what I call a B to B to B and C ecosystem, which is the B is first the let's say the BCCI who have the rights. They sell it to the other B, which is the TV company, right, or the TV broadcaster in that sense. And then the B and C are the people who monetize it, right? So the B who monetizes it is the advertiser, and the C who monetizes it is the consumer, right? Because broadcasters also earn through subscription fees in that sense, right? But in digital, apart from the ecosystem play, we also have to figure out what are all the business models that we can kind of create, right? Because digital is very interesting, right? On YouTube and on a bunch of other platforms, you can actually create a mechanism to generate revenues directly from the consumer. All right, so we have a product called Super Chat. So imagine if an esports entity can actually go directly to consumer and build a very interesting revenue model, right? So it is then a B to C rather than a B to B to B and C in that sense, right? Yeah. So again, I think collectively all of us have to figure out all of these models, and Supratik talked about a couple about advertiser readiness. So we also have to think about advertiser readiness and figure out how it could be a B to B, and then thereafter that B is C. I mean, this can get really fun and complicated, but I just thought I'll kind of put it out there.
Yeah, and I will come to Akshat with it. I mean, when Epic Games announced the Fortnite World Cup, they left it open for everyone to register, and about 40 million players actually registered. They sold 90,000 tickets for the Arthur Stadium for the final. So, is it developing the arena sport? Will you, at the end of the day, would you have to do it like ensure that people are actually coming to the arena, watching it happen in front of their eyes, and then it becomes a big property for you to have that adequate attention from both advertisers as well as broadcasters? And where are we in that front? Like, are people actually coming in to watch those players play passively, or like play actively and then watch passively on arena screens?
So I think it's a fundamental question again that goes back to sports, right? Have you been to a cricket match? If you go to a cricket match, you actually can't see the ball very well. If it depends on where you go ahead and sit, but most of the times you go for the ambience and whatever, right? Right. So if you putting on my pure content production hat, the 100,000 people in Eden Gardens watching a cricket match are just a really big studio, right? It's a nice studio. It has lots of color. It allows me to go ahead and if there was a Jeffrey boycott, he can go back to mentioning people's earrings. And it gives you color for the audience to go ahead and do this. So to me, it's and I think COVID showed that, right? The media value of a studio audience is a marketing gimmick. It just makes it look good. The media valuation for media rights is absolutely irrelevant on how many people are there in your studio. It can be 26 people in your studio. It can be a 500, or it can be 100,000. It just looks better. It gives you better B-roll. It just gives you better video shots to go ahead and you do. But fundamentally, the audience in a stadium watching people is there. I've been to the Olympics. You know that 80% of the people who watch the Olympics, if it's not in the United States, are the other athletes. There's no one who's watching anything else. It's just the athletes who sit and watch other athletes play. There are lots of them because it's an Olympic village. So you have about 20,000 people there. But predominantly, it's just organizers, other athletes sitting and watching, which is there. So then my question is, if that's the case, and esports have this long, think of an esports tournament like a 5-day test match. Typically, you're playing for 8 hours a day. Yeah. Right? Because you'll have different kind of matches, which is like a test match. You'll be playing for over 5 to 6 days, and sometimes over 15 days if it was PUBG Mobile, Counter-Strike, or whatever, right? So you have 3 test matches in a row, in a sequence that you have to go ahead and put down for people to keep watching. How many people in the world do you know that will watch 3 test matches for 8 hours a day continuously for 15 days, right? That's why you need different formats. To me, if the format is required that we have just people coming and watching the finals, then it is like a one-day match. You come there, you go ahead and watch a match for a certain time, just semifinals and finals, 2 one-day matches back to back, which is there. If you just want to watch a person, and which is the more important thing to do when we talked about teams, think Wimbledon. You don't watch Wimbledon. You watch Roger Federer because you like Roger Federer or Nadal. You watch all their matches during the tournament and you watch the semifinals and finals. That's how sports fans watch stuff. Sports fans don't watch the tournament. Nobody wants to watch PUBG Mobile every match ever. You watch Fnatic, you watch Umumba, you watch TSM Entity, you watch Navi, and then you'll watch the semifinals, finals because you love the game. And that's understanding those nuances, understanding formats, understanding what you want to broadcast, who you want to broadcast for, and what's the thing. Because eventually we'll have to monetize it, right? This valuation, what I call this run for valuations that is based on viewership will stop one day, and then it'll be on brass tacks. And Satya doesn't have to look at it, and Vivek doesn't have to look at it. But 90% of the media rights across the world, not necessarily only in India, is based on predicated on valuation plays where you just want to acquire customers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a counterpoint, Akshat, to what you're saying, but I just, I thought it was very interesting the way you put it, in perspective in terms of the audience. Now, if you actually hark back to a cricket match, when the game is going on, actually now I feel that the audience is actually a part of the content, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if someone does the math on it, perhaps 1/20th of that one-day international or that 5-day test match is just audience shots, audience reactions, or whatever, it might be 100, whatever it is, right? But what cricket has done is to be able to convert that into content. And that actually, I'm taking this back as an action item saying that, look, how do we also make every match entertaining to watch, right, in that sense? Because see, when gameplay happens on YouTube on a normal basis, not a part of a tournament or whatever, people are actually coming in and watching that gameplay, right? And they will watch every gameplay. Again, it might be fan-based or it might be game-based. People love the game and so they watch everything, or they love that guy and they watch everything. So maybe as an action item, we should all think about how we can make every moment valuable, figure out what are the content formats that can come in. That should be a fun
And Satya, actually, that's actually one of the things that we've all been thinking about is we call the shoulder content, right? So to me, media rights is not just the live content. There is a value to the extra innings. There's the value to the analysis. There's a value to people's shots and fan moments where someone comes and says, this is the fan wall and I want to be part of the fan wall and I want to have my video cheering for my team in this. So when someone's sitting at home, and what if there are 500,000 people who says, I'll turn my camera on to watch the match. And because I get that privilege, I'll be actually part of the stream because you captured my moment as soon as something cool happened, right? And then I'm suddenly part of the game to go ahead and do it. And to me, whether that is a monetizable thing, whether that is a value add, whether that's a platform play that is there, to me, those are the conversations you want to go ahead and do because engagement is definitely the key here.
Yeah, definitely. So Pratik, why don't you add on this point about esports being arena sports and the importance of audience?
So actually, it is the importance of the aha moment, which I think Akshat also, that's the real moment. That's what everybody plays for, and that's the one that people come to see. So the importance is actually to the pieces to link together and to have a complete narrative. So the narrative on this sport is yet to be built, and there has to be an Indian narrative, which I think Akshat also said, and we are all stating. The point is, this game now done only the way it was being done is not the only way to move forward. And there has to be multilingual. It has to have a narrative. It will have a team play narrative, a league play narrative, and an individual player narrative. And those are, at the moment, I think, all exploding in India, but in a very small way. The larger play is around the corner when I would say the media rights actually come to play, because those are important moments where there is an extreme backing on it, and various models of revenue generation, which are actually then going towards both the broadcaster and to the league owner or the TO, tournament organizer, and to the teams. Because finally that principal pool needs to be seen it, which is exactly why I think the last few years has gone on this experiment, which is you have to see, one is the league standpoint and what is happening to actually the teams as well. Because that central pool money right from the start is the important play. If we are in a kabaddi position where we are, if 50 to 70% of our revenue is not coming in from, the broadcast piece, it's very difficult, more or less impossible to generate it from sponsorships, because it is that more difficult to uphill to climb. But the fact is, now the new areas are coming in, which, Satya touched upon, that it is actually that super chat, it's about the donations, which are the new areas, which are now exploding again. They have more breakages on it and whatever is possible, which makes it viable. So eventually there will be a stadium play. The stadium might be much smaller because that aha moment needs to be captured on each one. So each one who comes there actually pays a premium to be, and then that is, intertwined into the narrative, which is an exciting play for everyone to actually talk about. Then the larger it gets, the larger play can always happen. But these are moments, because the broadcast piece is also being discovered as we speak, because, there is no fixed format, and dim lighting in I would say esport of the crowd is also a necessity, because the players need to focus, but after which you have to flip it. Now that is also certain challenges which happen with broadcast. Now, in others broadcast like cricket now, it's now come into the stadium under floodlights, but everybody can be seen. You can see the faces. Here, in kabaddi pieces now, it was again down to the kabaddi mat and how it's being flipped. All of these places are actually monetizable in certain ways, because when the blackout happens, there are monetizable plays which happen. So yes, stadiums will be the play, but this is not the only play for this one. This needs to be seen from the bedroom all the way. This is the only sport where an athlete is ready to play it as well as go and watch it and be in the top frame, which has never happened in the history of any sport. My dad took me to watch cricket games and football games because finally he liked it and we played it, so he took me. Here is a gamer who's playing it at home, goes there, he still is watching, and maybe tomorrow he's actually in the team. And there have been a couple of examples already in our few-year history with it, and Akshat can also vouch for it, because those are really happening. Now that in any other history is a retirement package, like for us ex-athletes, sit around and just watch the others play, but tell them how to play. But here it's not the case.
Yeah, that's great. There are a couple of questions. So before we move on, let's address them. Mrs. Karishma, she is asking, when can we see more servers for India? Because if you partner with companies that provide servers, your business will grow exponentially. We gamers don't get good servers for mainstream gamers. USA and European countries are way ahead of this. Akshat, would you like to take it?
Well, welcome to 4 years ago. This is exactly what we did for games that matter in the country of India. I think the question is for specifically like a game like Warface or whatever. Remember, there's a business model that needs to sit behind it, right? Critical mass needs to sit it. There is Counter-Strike that is there. There are servers in India currently for Valorant. There are servers for Counter-Strike. There's servers for Dota 2. There's servers for Fortnite. There's servers for, what's this game? They were for PUBG. There is for PUBG PC, those servers exist. So anything that reaches a certain, and let's not forget the Indian games. Every single Indian game of note which is there, whether it is Ludo or WCC or Real Cricket, they all have games. They all have servers in India with the propensity of AWS and GCP out there. I think between both of them, they have a very strong stack that allows people to go ahead and do not just bare metal but managed services. Some people go ahead and put in their own servers. Sure, you can. But my answer here is this is a critical mass thing. And I'll give you a number. No one will go ahead and put in a server if you don't have 100,000 users on a DAU basis. It's just not worth it. And once you have 100,000, which is there, so get people to play the game more. Watch servers come.
That's great. Thank you for answering it. Hope Karishma is satisfied. Vivek, when you look at this gaming space, you said your focus is on India. Any particular reason you have kept that focus? One, and two, if you were to look at these events, as you said, you are evaluating. What are the factors you would probably evaluate? Is it how big that league is already, or is it how much you can actually intervene and tweak with the design? Because if we say Kabaddi as an example came in, Kabaddi was actually, the format was changed to accommodate more monetization opportunities for the broadcasters, and that's how Kabaddi got into the television channels and became a big sport. In fact, at one stage, it was the second most viewed sport in India. So, what are the factors that you would evaluate when you are evaluating different sporting leagues that are there?
Sure. So two questions there. The first one, why India? Just to give some context, we have around 300 million users, out of which 65% are in India. Uh, that's across the base, but for streaming video and streaming music, almost 90% of our usage happens in India. Uh, and also we have a large ad sales team in India. So because of these strengths that we have, it made sense for us, at least as the first launch market, we should try India. So that's the reason why we have launched all our 1995 games in India currently. Your second question about what do we look at? I think both. I mean, we evaluate what kind of engagement it can give, how much synergy it has with our existing content library, as well as monetization potential. And we are very open-minded about new innovative monetization approaches. I think Satya highlighted some. I'll give you a few examples in video. For example, of course, we do typical standard AWOD where we insert mid rolls and display ads, but we also do video-led e-commerce. We are also trying live with gifting. We're also trying live education like edtech, which is paid education. So in general, even in gaming, we're wanting to evaluate what are the different monetization approaches and how a platform or a product can innovate and help grow monetization. And if there are such opportunities, that would be more interesting and exciting for us.
Okay. Okay. Satya, there is this need to grow esports further and have more people engaged, either as streamers or as players or as tournament creators. We know of Michael Jordan who has invested in Team Liquid, a gaming plan. We know about David Beckham owning one. There is Mesut Ozil owning one. Do you see such action happening in India by popular maybe film stars or cricketers investing in gamers, and that could probably have the next pool of growth?
No, so you actually touch upon a very interesting thing, right? And I can actually already see it happen. So I'm going to call them, I'm going to kind of flip your question a little bit and make it a little broader to say that, okay, is influencer-driven gaming happening as such, right? We need not always talk about the big stars in that sense, right? And that is actually happening. And Akshat will love to answer this question because he's doing a lot of interesting things there. But there's a gentleman who just fascinates us called Samay Raina, right? Yeah, so he's a chess player, right? But he has managed to drive so much consciousness around gaming around chess. So I'm not speaking in the sense of a tournament, but getting chess as something to be streamed, right? And we obviously see a lot of our YouTube creators and streamers and gamers also kind of take on that role, right? So in a very interesting manner, within the YouTube ecosystem, we are seeing a lot of this happen quite a lot, right? And Akshat, I don't know if you have any examples of people from perhaps other entertainment worlds come in here. I'd love to hear about anything.
Well, we did something together with you, Satya. There was this about a year ago. We had gone in for OnePlus. We had done something called Dominate, where we brought in 4 cricketers, 4 gamers, 4 comedians, and put them together and see what happens. And then they played PUBG Mobile, and it was a phenomenal placed event, which is there. We didn't go ahead and script it and add as much as the gameplay goes. And there were enough people who played, they loved it. There was a lot of content that comes out of it. We've already seen this happen with people like Shoops, and where we got some kind of celebrities and locally relevant celebrities to come in. And I'll close this off with 2 other things, which is there. We've seen this, and we will see this. You'll see those announcements in the next 20-25 days anyway, where more celebrity-led content is going to be coming in gaming. What you have to watch out for, Anirban, is legitimacy here, right? And I often like to go ahead and say, don't put a celebrity there to be playing a game just because he's better, because if you fake it, this community will call you out, and they'll call you out live. Right? So don't be a faker here. And I know Faker is a League of Legends star, but don't be a wannabe here, because do something that you're legit in. So just because you are a famous star does not make you a good gamer. And I think gaming is making its own stars. As Satya gave the example of someone like Samay Raina, which is that one of our big stars of manufactured out of the YouTube ecosystem is someone like a Carrie Minati, right? So you have to go ahead and look. He's among the top people in the world, not India, the world that is there. His current endorsement fees are sitting at above $100,000, if not more. He's getting into movies. Movie guys are coming to him saying, you will make my movie better because I'll have someone as legit as you. Every time Big Boss happens, there is this troll that he's going to be part of Big Boss, and Big Boss does well because of it. He is a star. And eventually, stars are asking to go ahead and say, can you go ahead and give me a collab with him? And we'll see that. And there's, with Shoop's co-founder in Usports is Ronnie, and he understands that extremely well of how to go ahead and do it. Times understands it phenomenally well when they have done this collabs with everything's around the Times ecosystem. Satya, you've seen this, which is there with YouTube FanFest. I think the gaming, while we'll still need, it's the question, does cricket need to be part of the Olympics? Maybe, maybe not. I actually believe that esports being part of the Olympics is a good to have, but not a must have, because the Football World Cup, as an example, is bigger than the Olympics where football plays, right? While it should be part of it, but the Football World Cup is bigger, which is there, right? And I think that's the space that gaming has and esports has specifically, where we can go ahead and have our own space.
Yeah, and I can't stress enough on what you said, Akshat, right? Which is it's got to be believable, right? Another great example, which has not happened recently, but the first avatar of it was folks like AIB actually pushed gaming to the front, right? And now Tanmay reinventing it all over again, right? In that sense, but it's believable because they understand that game, they know how to play it, and they understand what works with the audiences. So yeah, I mean, all of these people put together are as good as the Michael Jordans, as far as I'm concerned.
That's great. So Pratik, what about international tournaments coming to India? Do you think that would be, as more of them come into India, do you think that would inspire gamers to take it and become more than recreational players, maybe look into professional gaming?
So I would say that that's definitely around the horizon, because see, finally, when the number of gamers climb, and that's for the ecosystem, and we're all part of the ecosystem here. So for all of us, it's an important one that more people game, more servers based here, DAU, MAU numbers going through the roof, which is already beginning to happen. A certain bit of regulation which comes in and helps that entire process. That's when I think, that jump is around the corner. It's being seen. It's been referred in the parliament. So eventually, once it comes into the purview, and this is the youth, from the 8-year-old all the way to the 24-year-old, all the way stretchable to the 50-year-old, everyone's doing it at some pace, or the other. Plus, the devices are so much more. Now, the mobile play is going to be the largest as far as India and China were concerned, and maybe the subsequent in Africa. So eventually, these tournaments have to land here, and we'll have a massive fan base, but also to get to the Indian players. Yeah. And like Akshat also mentioned, and I would say that that's where it is. The stars are born. You give them the impetus. There will be some, Carrie Minatis are definitely there. There are some girls like Saya who are doing things which is interesting now, and they will allow many more, girl teamers also to come in. Which unfortunately in this conversation we're again, too many men talking about it as well. But the fact is, there is a huge lot there who's kind of underexplored at the moment, which is a big, big opportunity. With whether it can be combined into the mainstream tournaments or can be done as a standalone, which is when you bring the narrative, 360 degrees, which is what is required here.
Okay, there are plenty of questions, but I don't think we have time to take all of them, but we'll take few. Akshat, we have early generations of gamers in India, but how have the viewers evolved? Okay, maybe Satya can take it. Do we have a wide base of viewers who are taking it for the entertainment aspect alone? And a question from my side to it, is it entertainment plus social networking? Because I see a lot of people playing PUBG just to social network, like get along with friends and then maybe spend a good one map together. So is it entertainment plus social networking?
Of that and more actually, right? So a lot of gamers will actually tell you that they actually thrive on the feedback that they get while they're streaming, right? Because a lot of people who probably are telling them, hey, why did you do this or why did you do that, right? So the whole feedback loop that happens almost instantaneously is even a great contributor to all of this. But yes, the base is now becoming really big in that sense. I talked about it earlier about how now we have streamers in different languages, which actually speaks to the fact that audiences then are present in those languages, right? We are seeing audiences come from smaller towns, from villages even. So this, I think, is the perfect time for all of us to, one, rethink what is the best model to kind of make this ecosystem thrive. Perfect time for people to come in and either become a streamer. You can even start afresh right now, and you have, amazing headroom to grow, right, in that sense, because the number of internet users in the country are perhaps at 550, 600, 650 million. That is a huge number. The amount of people who are consuming gaming content within that is also extraordinarily high in that sense. But there's so much more headroom to grow. There's also so many more games happening, right, which will get varied perspectives, different audiences who will then come in also. So it's not just only action games, but so many other types of games that are happening, right? So I think, yeah, it's great time to do a bunch of things together.
So,
I'll actually go
yeah.
flag off something which is important, right? And I think while we all drink our very nice Kool-Aid and we sing Kumbaya about this, there is one very important thing that a lot of people don't. And hopefully there are a lot of people out there who have children to go ahead and do this. I call it the 3-point agenda, right? Esports, and it can be any sport in the world, is the business of 200. To the sport, to the tippy top of the sport. Only the top 200 people matter. They might cycle, but only 200 matter, right? These are the people you have central contracts with. These are the Virat Kohlis, the Rohit Sharmas, the Hardik Pandyas of the world, right? And some people retire, some people come in. It's also if you look at Kabaddi, it's the people who Shubs has in his U Mumba team, right? But if you look at the total number of professional Kabaddi players in the country, there'll not be more than 200 of odd Shubs, right? These are the people who has a livelihood coming in only from the profession of playing sport. That's the word pro, right? Professional, right? And we kind of make a mistake on this. And if we have 100 million or 150 million people playing esports, 200 million people playing PUBG Mobile, Free Fire, etc., esports across this, you'll still only have 200 per discipline as an example. Maybe only 20 people per discipline, which is there. What happens to the people who go from you start playing the game and 200 million DAU to the top 20 people, which is there? Is this journey of opportunity we want to go do? That is where someone like a YouTube content creator becomes important, right? Because you've suddenly become a caster, a talent, a player, a streamer. You can become a coach, you can become an analyst, you can become a team owner, you can go ahead and do this. And as the ecosystem grows, know fully well that this is esports. To be a professional esports player for, again, PUBG Mobile is a good example to go ahead and do. It's probably going to be tougher than passing CAT and the IAS and the IPS exams, right? Because you have 200 million people wanting to go ahead and compete with you for 20 to 100 spots. And it's important to understand that. And the only way you'll become an esports athlete is not by playing more games. Which is the other thing I always want to myth bust here. Kids go to parents and say, I'm playing 10 hours of PUBG and hence I will be better. My answer is 9.5 hours out of that you're wasting, and you're doing entertainment. It's like watching Netflix right now. Shubs jump here because you can't play more to be better. You have to build skill sets. You have to have map awareness. You have to have wrists. You have to do exercises. You have to be healthy. You have to do a lot of other things so that your muscle memory when you're performing in the match is better. You don't be better just because you played more games. So when those kids go and tell parents that I'm going to be a esports gamer because I'm playing 10 hours a day, he's kind of making a fool of you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That part that Akshat mentioned, which I think should go as a sounding bell. The more you play, doesn't make you anything. Like you can go to a cricket net and bowl for 8 hours and 9 hours and slog and maybe pass out because of exertion. That's the same which happens here. You need to be focused. You need to have a decent diet, have a plan in place, and have a logic of where this is going. And therefore, we are also encouraging a lot more, like Akshat said, the top 200 and the ecosystem below. The place is going to be available to a lot of people, but there needs to be absolute discipline, like any athlete, to be right there, because it is very tough to be right at the top. And, he's run tournaments, we are running ours, I've run teams. It's difficult to land in that unless that discipline comes in. So the the mix of the two, of the real, true athlete. This is actually a true athlete. And like my old company in Red Bull, which we were also associated with in some ways, the fact was about, body and mind. And like a chess player, the mind is the most powerful muscle, and you have to rest it, you have to play it right, and you have to work everything towards it. So, therefore, like he said, that's one thing that should be wrong to every parent. So, more you play doesn't make you a great player. You need to have a strategy and a plan, and you have to be calm when it's coming through, because that's the only opportunity that you really have.
And one of the worst things is, it happens in cricket also, right? What do you want to go ahead and do? I'm playing matches. Hello, you don't know how to bat, you don't know how to bowl, you don't know how to. You're playing a match and you'll become better. How will you become? Match awareness is the last thing you do, not the first thing you do in this entire process, right? So we need to go ahead and have that kind of conversation. And the last one, again, the last point in this circle, it's important to complete. When you're a content creator, right? Again, Satya, you should jump in here. Discipline, that word discipline, which is there, it sounds very boring to young people. It's so important. Broadcast at the same time. Let the algorithm work for you. Make sure that you're frequent. Make sure that you're regular. Create. And, Tanmay says it's called the grind, right? Without the grind, this will not happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, and we've learned this from not just gamers, but creators from every discipline. The importance of consistency, the importance of turning up, the importance of being yourself. So many of those simple things actually become so much more important, right? It's the exact opposite of what happens, in other entertainment zones, where it's all about perhaps coming in and doing the flourish, and everyone then sees that and assumes that is it. But all of that hard work behind is even more important here, right? And I just want to go back to that point you made about the 200, Akshat. I think it's incumbent on all of us to try and see if we can, break that number, right? Because if anything, and I think you used perhaps the sporting world example, and given that these are uncharted territories, I assume the canvas is broader and the script can be rewritten. So would love to take all of you up on that and see how we can perhaps tinker with that and give more people hope.
I think it's Satya, I'm with you. I think there's much more, because what Akshay said is each discipline, because there are so many games. Maybe there'll be 30, 50 mobile games working in India, maybe 20 PC games, and maybe 15 console games, and maybe 100 arcade games, because arcade is also being kept out, but I'm just bringing it to the purview. It's all content which is all coming out, and it is all exciting. Like the other day, Bandai Namco set up, had this basketball ring where there are 2 rings and you play against the ring with the other guy. You do maybe 100 baskets in 3 minutes. It just shatters your muscle. So I was like, if this is exciting, because even to a, I would say Michael Jordan would be difficult. How many baskets can you hit one after the other if there are 100 balls being thrown at you? Now those are games that are coming. So what I think it's an expanded number. He said 200. So I would say 200 multiplied by maybe 200 spaces, if not more, is where the number is. Akshat, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, spot on. And it's 200 at the tippy top, right? I believe that if there are 200, I need at least 200,000 people who are at least vying for those. And then 2 million people who are content creating for it. And otherwise the ecosystem doesn't, right? It needs to be there where everyone has some kind of hope saying, I'm fine. I couldn't get to be playing, I don't know, the test matches for India, but I can play Ranji Trophy. I can go ahead and play, and then that's where suddenly the base becomes, right? The opportunities in cricket are so big in India because it's so fundamental to our livelihood, which is there. You can have a Ghatkopar versus Matunga playing, and that has still opportunity that is happening.
Plus, it's like you're talking about the Olympics. We're saying there is 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, 400 meters, 1500 meters, 3000, steeplechase, all of it. So basically, esports is like that. And then there is the football piece, then there is the rugby piece, then there is the cricket piece. So these are all the esports. Each will have an ecosystem to survive in, and each will have that many more players. And this is where I think the democracy of growth is really being seen. And it's just the tip, I would say, right now. Yeah, Satya.
And there are a lot of other instances and insights which tell us that the digital space tends to be a little more disaggregated. The importance of the long tail and the torso, whereas perhaps the broadcast world is more head in that sense, right? There's only one person who can get, or one media property that can get in at 9 p.m. right? In that sense. So I think we've got to figure out all of those opportunities to try and push the ecosystem, and truly take advantage of the, fantastic model that digital is all about, right? In that sense.
Great.
And one last thing, Anirban, and then Vivek, I think there's
How many last things are you going to say, Akshat?
yeah, ek baar, yeah, matlab it's the one thing. But it's a
Go
question
on,
to
Akshay,
Vivek.
go on.
One thing I would love to go ahead and say is, Vivek, like you've done phenomenally with TikTok, with Takatak, right? With which changed this to there. And as Satya also mentioned, the future of India is going to be coming in from the small towns of our countries. It's regional, it is specific, it's vernacular, it's there. It's also the hope that comes out of this, right? How does this work for others things on the platform? Any insights that you have there? Because I'd love to see how someone like you are going and approaching sports content.
So yeah, on the Takatak side, multiple, it started with basic entertainment, dance, and that kind of content. But I think in the last 3-4 months, especially, we are seeing faster growth in sports, in food, in fashion, and in poetry and travel, and a lot of other categories. And I think, in fact, maybe it's a premature announcement, but we are planning to launch multiplayer sports within the Takatak app as well, and we see a lot of potential in that. And in fact, actively talking to a lot of brands on how we can do brand integrations into a lot of these esports to improve monetization. So yeah, I think lots of exciting things will be announced in the next 30 days from our side on esports.
Great, great. And you talked about smaller towns, Akshat. The Manjan Das, who is that maker, as we know, the CS:GO ESL champion. He's from Silchar in Assam. So smaller towns have big gamers. We are the last phase of it. Vivek, staying with you, there is a question that you could probably take. It was about how to overcome the hurdle of convincing Indian marketeers to spend more on esports. I know you're not trying to sell esports yet, but since you deal with marketeers a lot, do you see that the marketeers still not considering esports to be a medium for them?
No, actually, quite the opposite. We see marketeers are very interested if you can create opportunities for engagement instead of just watching a mid roll, which is a very non-engaging experience. So we have done quite a few partnerships. I think we did one recently with Duracell, where they what the product itself was integrated into the esport. And it sort of represented how Duracell is bringing energy into the game. So yeah, I think there are a lot of creative ways to market products during the gameplay. And I think those integrations are actually better possible with esports than with traditional sports. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to do that.
Yes, yes, Akshat, why don't you go into it? Because do we have enough examples of, I know we don't, but yet how far are we from examples of brands being built during esports? I mean, the typical advertisers, they don't exist in India. There would be the computer brands or the hardwares or, the graphic card manufacturers. So those brands, they're not marketing very actively in India. So what is in store when you discuss with marketers about esports?
Well, marketeers do what? They sell products, right? And eventually, whether you're doing a positioning or a marketing product, you're trying to sell something, right? It's a performance ad. It's something to go ahead and do. We've never been, while we started esports in India as PC gaming, which is there, the PC gaming market was never exploding in India. We were still limited to where we were, and we've all tried that, right? So trying to go ahead and change a market which is not going to be fundamentally endemic to what we're talking about won't work. So you have to sell to two different, what I call pillars. The first is you have to sell, the endemics for us are the mobile tech people. So whether it is Airtel, which we are having a great partnership, you've seen Jio going and doing something there with their own esports program, or you have the OEMs with Asus that is participating. You have OnePlus that actually goes and does something. So you have the phone guys who are actively going after this market. And I think they would have done even more if this was not a ban that had come in from China, where Chinese products would not be there, because that would have been, I think 2020 would have been a year where most of those most of those phone companies would have invested heavily into this. Qualcomm, for example, is partnering with PUBG Mobile for the World Cup right now. That is there. The other one is, again, Shupratik has done this very successfully, but It's to go ahead and look at who your consumer is, right? Forget the brand. If you're talking to youth, which is 16 to 24-year-old, predominantly currently male, which is there, who does that matter to? And then you have the new endemics that are coming in. People like Red Bull, people like Mountain Dew, that are getting very, very actively. Why shouldn't Tinder go ahead and advertise to these people in the future? They should, right? It's a very easy TG to go ahead and start going in. And if you look at a TG base, these are the new endemics that are out there, and you're seeing those people come in. You see those people run mid-roll, pre-rolls through their programmatic, through OMD, Havas, and Mindshares of the world, that they are going and running this. There are brands that are getting very actively involved in this space that are youth targeted. So why not a Timex tomorrow? Why not Score Condoms tomorrow? I don't know. Why can't you go ahead and actually have someone like a Duracell also going and getting involved in this? And then there are women's sides. Why can't a Nykaa and a Myntra get involved? So I think those youth specific brands is the one we have to go ahead and talk about, because this matters to the youth now.
Okay. Okay. Last question I'm taking from our attendees. I know I've missed a lot of them. I'm really sorry, but we do not have time. Supratik, there's a question. Is there a way to get gamers off their chairs? Pokemon started online, offline blend. Will there be more such? Or what's your view on it? We started by discussing chairs. Now there's somebody asking about taking us off those chairs.
No, I think
There's a question about a desk also, and carpal tunnel syndrome and all of that. So it's all kind of related, I guess.
Right. No, so there are some of the games which are actually coming in with that. There are first-person shooter games which have experimented with with pentathlon, and that's a classic example. So you play an FPS game, go for a run, come back and shoot with a pistol, and then you're back in it. So these are experiments which are happening, and I would say even the arcade games are, is a huge opportunity which has been developed, a few of them. And there will be such moments as well, because it'll be far more easily accessible. You can put that in the I would say basement zone of a building, because finally when the urban setups come in and all of those, how much land or how much availability do I have to even place a kabaddi mat, let alone be a football pitch or a cricket pitch for that matter. So the easier it is to actually have a system and a machine. Again, I'm stating about the Bandai game. There was one which was a table tennis one. There were two sets of balls which are coming out from two sides. And I had from my, table tennis team from Umumba TT, the player actually testing it out. And Sudipta said, wow, this is very, very quick, because both sides, the ball keep coming in and the pace of it and the trajectory of it changes. And it's coming on one side of the court and you have to smash it. And you got a point table right there. Those are games which will, which will just shake the understanding. And I would say Just Dance, for that matter, is a phenomenal fun game to actually watch and play. And if you try and do it on the 5-mat system or the 10-mat system, with the 10 lines coming in each with a note, you can't move after a minute. It's more enduring than any other endurance exercise. And tested as an athlete, if you see it, while boxers have to punch on a minute on the turn tuner, this is much faster. So such games are also, and there'll be a prize championship, because those will also be on the leaderboard. And it's a very nice, entertaining content. It's very, very nice, because you match the moves, you match the thing. It can be done with any sport. So I think those are here to stay and kind of completely evolving. We are right at the tip of the iceberg, as I would say, because it's just 2021. By 25, it'll go somewhere else. By 30, God knows what it'll be.
I was waiting for someone to say tip of the iceberg. Now that you said it, I think that's a good note to end this on. But I thought it's important to also then focus on, something that is very boring, but, very important, which is well-being. My advice to everyone is that, look, you are the gamer, you are the streamer. You're the expert in streaming and gaming. No one's going to come and tell you how to do it better. Obviously, you learn from all your other colleagues and all of that. But in the area of wellness, sometimes listen to your parents. They might give you a word of good advice. Listen to your friends. We underestimate the importance of taking a deep breath and what it does to your body. So from my side, maybe to everyone out there who is into the world of gaming, take deep breaths. That should help you in the long run.
Thank you, Satya. Thank you, Akshat. Thank you, Supratik. Thank you, Vivek. Tomorrow we have a session with only the gamers, and I'm really excited to have that session tomorrow. But do join us tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us here today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you all. It's really good. Thanks.